Viewers, there are signs of progress in the India-U.S. ties, with Prime Minister Modi and U.S. President Trump holding a phone conversation as negotiations from both sides continue, and discussions, of course, are continuing as well on a trade agreement. The two leaders reviewed progress in India-U.S. comprehensive global strategic partnership. They exchanged views on expanding cooperation in trade, critical technologies, energy, defense, and security. Meanwhile, amidst the ongoing trade talks, U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer has told lawmakers that India has made the best offers Washington has ever received as a country. But while there appears to be headway on the trade front, there are recent measures by the Trump administration which could become a new pain point in the relationship. In fact, for many who are chasing the American dream, there's a huge price tag that they would now have to pay. U.S. President Trump has launched the official sales of his anticipated Gold Card visa program, providing a path to legal status and eventual U.S. citizenship. The scheme requires individual applicants to pay $1 million US, and this comes as thousands of H-1B visa interviews have been postponed by several months. This is a move that hurts Indians the most, as they comprise 70% of the total H-1B visa approvals in recent years. Meanwhile, U.S. Trade Representative Sidney Kamlaga-Dove has used Prime Minister Narendra Modi's well-circulated car selfie with Russian President Vladimir Putin to target Trump 2.0 administration's recent approach towards New Delhi. The question is, will domestic pressure translate into pragmatism when it comes to policies?
When Trump took office at the beginning of this year, the Biden administration handed him a bilateral relationship at the height of its strength. These were hard-earned accomplishments and the product of strategic discipline from our two countries. And then what happened? Flush, flush, flush down the toilet, the capital that Americans have built over decades in service of Trump's personal grievances. And unless he changes course, Trump will be the American president that lost India, or more accurately, that chased India away, while revitalizing the Russian Empire.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
All right, let me take this across to our guest. Joining us is Brahmacharani, strategic affairs expert. With us is Brad Bannon, who's a host of Deadline DC with Brad Bannon podcast, CEO of the Bannon Communication Research. We have Jeffrey Gunter, ex-US ambassador, also joining us on the show. Let me start with you first. Jeffrey Gunter, I'm just going to quote, that particular statement that you saw from US Representative Sidney Kamlaga-Dove, pointing towards this image of Putin with Modi. And she says that this poster is worth 1,000 words. Trump's policies towards India can only be described as cutting our nose to spite our face. Being a coercive partner has a cost, and this poster is worth 1,000 words. Notwithstanding the fact that Modi and Trump have had a conversation a few hours ago, this, bubbling resentment could, feature into something more. And she's not the only one. There's Pramila Jayapal, who's also spoken about the concerns about the handling of this regime.
President Trump is brilliant. He has a tremendous relationship with your great Prime Minister Modi. They've always had a great relationship. Like I've always said, if we have a stadium, I promise you, and I've said it on your great station for 6 months now, we will have a stadium filled in either India or America with 100,000 people celebrating the Trump-Modi relationship. I promise you, if you had a Modi-Putin rally, you could barely get anyone there, and all the people there would be paid to be there or threatened to be there. We have great fundamental underlying values. The relationship is strong. This is a negotiation. We are watching this, actually the sausage being made. And to quote the representative, flush, 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 the only thing that's been flushed, as we know, was the prior President Biden's mental capacity to even function. And, he had the auto pen. So let's be honest. President Trump is making deals all the way around the world. America is very strong, and I am sure, I will bet a lot on this, that the relationship between India and America is strong. Why? Similar values. We believe the same things. You can't replace that. Money can't buy that. America loves India. India loves America. Trump is brilliant.
All right. Brad Bannon, the shared values, the mutually important strategic issues, all of this will be enough to see the relationship through. The, of course, personal equation and camaraderie that we've seen in the past. We haven't seen a lot of public displays of that in recent months. But again, there's been a conversation today. Are you reassured by what's being stated by Jeffrey Gunter?
They're ringing. They're calling in.
I request you to unmute yourself and speak, sir. I think there's a problem with that line there. Let me take that question across to Brahma Chalani. Brahma Chalani, of course, the Prime Minister and President Trump have had a conversation this evening. There's a lot of unfinished agenda in the form of the trade talks. Of course, they appear to be heading closer to resolution, but there's still a lot more in terms of sticking points. And those sticking points have only increased since early this year, when Prime Minister Modi visited Washington, D.C. One would have thought that things would have been far closer to resolution now. Brahma Chalani.
I agree with you, Madhav. The fact is that the U.S.-India relationship, which had been blossoming under successive American presidents, developed new strains during Joe Biden's presidency. Now, these new strains resulted in tensions coming out in the open. And under President Trump's second term, the relationship has reached a low point. In other words, Trump has contributed significantly to damaging the relationship with India. Now, if you look at India's own neighborhood, the divergence of US and Indian interests is becoming stark. The US is giving support to military-backed regimes in Bangladesh and Pakistan, but seeking to overthrow Myanmar's military junta. So if US and India cannot agree on core Indian security issues, issues that center on India's own neighborhood, how can they be global partners? So it's not just the trade friction. As you rightly point out, Madhav, there are these other issues, fundamental issues, and the two democracies will have to find ways to bridge that divergence, especially because India's neighborhood is vital to India's core interests. You cannot have the US working against India's own interests in India's neighborhood.
Let me bring that in. Brad Bannon, many would say that, you know, the kind of developments that we saw in Bangladesh and so on in India's neighborhood, some might argue that actually preceded Trump. It's not only Trump who's contributed to it, but the US also needs to have a consistent policy. Of course, there's no doubt about the fact that the friction has gotten a whole lot worse. And perhaps this is the lowest point, as the previous speaker, Mr. Chelani, said. But somewhere or the other, is there a sense that this is something that has been in the making for a while now? Brad?
Well, I'm glad that the president and the prime minister are talking. That itself is positive news. I think President Trump has treated India shabbily. Unreasonable demands on high tariffs, which are not only hurting Indians, but they're hurting Americans. Because of the president's policy of high tariffs, the Americans are paying exorbitant rates for basic goods. And I think you're going to see, my prediction is, I think you're going to see the president back down on a lot of his tariff demands because it's causing him big problems here in the United States among voters. And, you know, let me say something else. So I think, you know, the prime minister should, you know, stand tall because I think President Trump, for political reasons, is ready to, you know, make some concessions on trade. And I'm glad we've got to that point. I also think, you know, in terms of the gold card visa, that is actually ridiculous. These Indian students in the United States are valuable, and the United States should be doing everything it can to encourage them to stay in the United States after they finish college if they want to stay here. Charging them for that is ridiculous. We should be giving, the United States should be giving Indian students money giving them money to stay in the United States because they're so valuable to our economy. And I think President Trump's tariff policies are wrong-headed. They're causing problems in India's economy. They're causing problems in the United States economy. But I think the president is reading the tea leaves, and he's going to start softening his demands because of political pressure here in the United States.
Well, actually, Brad Barron, they aren't causing such a huge hurt to the Indian economy because the Indian economy isn't essentially export-oriented. It's domestic consumption-oriented. In fact, if the last quarter numbers are anything to go by, the GDP has gone up despite about a month and a half of those tariffs being in operation at that point of time. But let me bring in, the issue of the golden visa, and let me bring in Pastor Burns on that. Pastor Burns, there's a basic sense of lack of understanding, if I can derive from what has been stated by Brad Barron, because, you want these talented, meritorious students, one would imagine. But here, you're choosing money over merit. Those meritorious students are going to leave the US and go to, wherever they can find jobs or whoever's going to support them. That's going to be the net result of this entire golden visa and, going slow on the H-1B visa, which we see happening very clearly.
Well, historically, students that come to America, they come to America to get what is considered by many the best education, but also the best opportunity to make as much money as possible from around the world. So that's number one. Number two, students who come here, they come all the time with the mentality to get jobs here in America because we offer the greatest wages. The gold card is President Trump's gift to American innovation. I mean, the goal is to strengthen the U.S. economy, strengthen the U.S. Treasury, allow us to make billions of dollars off of the Gold Card initiative while strengthening American innovation, while not costing the taxpayers' money. So this is, a text, quote unquote, playbook for business entrepreneurship. Again, to strengthen the economy of America while
but every student's not a businessman. And where do they have that $1 million when they are students in the first place? You're putting the cart before the horse, sir.
Well, I think it's very important to understand that this is also for businesses in America. Again, this ensures that businesses in America can maintain the good talent that comes, the talent that they pay for, the talent that they help groom and educate, those that they pay for their education. Again, the purpose of it is to make sure that the American company and the American people and the American dollar is strengthened. The American economy is strengthened. And that's why people voted President Trump to be president, so that the American economy be made great again. And so I understand what your point is, but this is about us bringing in good talent, but also strengthening the immigration process and the immigration procedures here in America.
No, absolutely.
Again,
every country. I'm not going to argue that point with you, because here in India itself we have huge issues relating to foreigners coming in, particularly illegal foreigners, and every country has a sovereign right to control that. There's absolutely no two ways about it. But the point is, by putting this huge $1 million barrier or the golden visa tag, and let me bring in Brahma Chilani on that, because Brahma Chilani, somewhere, is there a lack of understanding of why this is so important? The American dream that many are talking about, the kind of rhetoric that we're seeing in the United States is completely at odds with the kind of individuals, professionals who are not just going today, but have been going to the United States for decades. From some of our best universities, some of our best minds have gone there.
Madhav, it's not just $1 million. That's for an individual applicant. If a corporation is sponsoring an employer, it's $2 million. And there's also an additional $1 million gift to the U.S. Treasury required for each dependent. For example, if you bring your spouse and one child, you end up as an individual having to pay $3 million as a gift to the U.S. Treasury. But look at the paradox. On one hand, we have President Trump repeatedly demonizing immigrants and pursuing restrictive immigration policies. On the other hand, he launches this gold card, which seeks to monetize permanent residency. There's a clear shift from bringing in highly skilled immigrants to bringing in wealthy immigrants. But the U.S. economic growth story has been fueled by highly skilled immigrants. So Trump is basically undermining America's long-term growth trajectory by seeking to shift immigration from high skills, especially in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, to bringing in wealthy people who are willing to donate money to the U.S. Treasury.
Let me bring in fact, Jeffrey Gunter on that. I think that's the ultimate point. It's a question that I just asked a short while ago. It's mammon over merit. And ultimately, Trump has shown what it is that is the priority for him and the U.S. government at the current moment. And many would say that's perhaps not the right choice, because where is all that talent? Where are all those fresh brains going to come in from?
Well, first and foremost, may God bless the pastor for that you have on my panel for his great comments. He's spot on. This is all about making America great again. President Trump was elected in a landslide with a mandate. So our other speaker from, I guess it was Deadline, those are absolutely dead thoughts. The idea that we as an American taxpayer are going to pay for the education of other countries' people that come here and learn from our great resources and learn from our taxes is dead ideology. That is a globalist Hillary Clinton dream world that no longer exists and has been fully rejected by President Trump and all the voters across America through his landslide victory. And I'd like to remind everyone, this is an incentive for corporations to send their people to come to America, and they can actually pay for these people to have the blessings and the greatness of our incredible educational and industrial system that we have here. And let there be no misunderstanding. We are not in the business of educating the world. We are in the business of making America educated again, great again, successful again. And don't forget, President Trump has stopped eight peace agreements he's made. He stopped 8 conflicts, including helping with the India-Pakistan situation. So he has tremendous relations around the world, and he has great support here in America. And his victories are numerous, and it's brilliant.
You know, the question that many will ask, and you know, this is exactly what's been stated by this particular, representative, when she says that, and let me bring in Brad Bannon on that. Brad Bannon, is it the best way to go about, trying to get your Nobel Prize by insulting those who are your strategic partners? Because the reiteration by President Trump, I've lost count. I think there's been about 4 dozen times that he said that he's the one who resolved the India-Pakistan conflict, despite the known public positions of India that no third party can mediate or negotiate.
Yeah, let me just say in general, Donald Trump is weak here at home. His immigration policies are a mess. His tariff policies are a mess. And that gives India more bargaining power. And that's why I think you had the call between the prime minister and the president yesterday, because I think Trump is prepared to make concessions to improve his standing here in the United States. His job approval rating now is under 40%. And let me say one thing they also talked about defense policy. China just launched a new aircraft carrier. The Chinese Navy is becoming much more aggressive in the Indian Ocean, and that means Donald Trump needs, and the United States needs, India's military help. So I think India's in a strong bargaining position to reverse some of Trump's terrible policies, and they should take advantage of that while they can.
Right. And in fact, Pastor Burns, I want you to come in on this, because somewhere or the other, if you want to have a strategic partnership with India, then, the manner in which the military dictator there in Pakistan, the army chief and now the field marshal, or many would call him failed marshal, Asim Munir, is being wined and dined in Washington, D.C. And also the fact that U.S. has just approved a sale package of $636 million for Pakistan's F-16 fleet. What's the strategic priority for the United States is a question on everyone's mind here in India.
Well, I know it's very shocking for the globalist elite. I know it's shocking to have a president, an American president, that is going to create policies that's designed to increase the American worker or the American economy. I know it's a little bit shocking for the rest of the world, and now that is actually happening because that's why people elect an American president. American citizens elect American president, not the global elite, not the world, but the American people. Is so that we have a leader, a commander-in-chief, that will make decisions that's designed specifically for the American
on Pakistan.
people.
What does it have to do with the elite?
So the question is, I came on the show to talk about the gold visa. And the gold visa is what you brought me on the show to talk about. And that was the fact that the president created a program
That's one of the issues. There are many issues between the ties as far as India and US are concerned. And, Pakistan certainly is a factor for India.
That is designed to draw in strong content, strong workers, strong talent. And again, you got to remember, like the gentleman said earlier, this $1 million fee is not for the student. This is not for students. This is to protect the American workers because we got very bright people here in America. And we don't want them losing out on jobs because we're bringing in outside helpers who are talented. And the president calls these foreigners gifts. They are a gift to America, and we're grateful for this outside talent.
All right.
But again, the whole ideal of it is that the companies
So they're the
pay for
gifts
this,
that have
and
to keep giving, quite literally. I mean, that's a first. But anyway, we'll have to leave it there. Brahma Chelani, Brad Barron, Jeffrey Gunter, as well as Pastor Burns, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. And of course, all eyes on what happens as far as those trade negotiations are concerned and whether the frost as far as the ties between India and US is concerned will come to an end once those announcements are made. We'll have to leave it there. Thanks so much for joining us this evening.